I miss this old Joe. I miss this Joe Rogan. Like, if that version of Joe, like, comes back and he starts, like, you know, oh, I was wrong about, like vaccines and shit, I'm down for it. You sent this over earlier. Recently, conservative creep Seth Dillon, who runs the Babylon Bee, said that a 13-year-old girl who was R-worded should have been forced to give birth. This is so depraved that Joe Rogan was disgusted by it and destroyed him for it. This is how normal people respond to cretins like him.
And this idea that you can't have someone who is a Christian who talks to another person who's a Christian, and maybe they were on the fence about something, and you convince them to have a child, and it's the best decision they have ever made in their life, and they love their kids so much they couldn't imagine they were thinking about getting an abortion. Right. That's real too. Yeah. That's real too. There's also women who have been raped who should not have to fucking carry some rapist baby. There's women who have been sexually assaulted before the age of 14.
There's also, hold on though.
But hold on, don't stop me.
Okay.
That's real too. And we all have to agree. We have to agree on both of those things.
There are also, though, I'm not going to argue with you on that point, but I will say there are people who have been born of rape and are alive right now and are pro-life, and they go around speaking, talking about how I had a right to live, and they will go out there and make an argument.
Yeah, dude, and there are people who were born of consensual sex who should have been aborted, like Seth Dillon. What's your point? There are people who were born of consensual conditions who go around talking about how fucking great life is and how they should fucking get on their Sigma grind set. They should have been aborted too.
Argument, a pro-life case, and they're born of a rape.
You don't have a right to tell a 14-year-old girl she has to carry a rapist baby.
I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that's real too. Yeah, I understand. What you're saying.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't have the right to tell my 14.
I was just about to say this. The reason that Joe has this position, this is like bare minimum Joe Rogan, right? He has the most bare minimum take here. But the reason, like, of all the reactionary sentiment he's developed over the last, like, 5-6 years is because he has kids. He has 2 daughters.
On my 14-year-old daughter, she has to carry her rapist baby. You understand that?
To look that woman in the eye who was born of a rape.
Do you understand that? That's a 14-year-old child. If a 14-year-old child gets raped, you say that they have to carry that baby?
I don't think 2 wrongs make a right. I don't think murder. I don't think murder is.
Okay, I want this whole thing. Is there a whole segment? Because like a minute and a half, I need more than that. I need more than that. I need more. I need to see the whole thing. It's also a lie. Seth Dillon and other cunts like him behind the OMG I am pro-life, a clump of cells is holy, as they support wanton mass murder of babies, the U.S. empire in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Palestine. They just want to force raped women to give birth. That's it. Here's Seth Dillon quote tweeting a New York Post, first of all, article. Mississippi girl, 13, gives birth after being raped, unable to get abortion. She could always dress him in a should-have-been-aborted onesie so no one ever mistakenly thinks he's wanted. What? Like, oh. Okay, I'm sorry. I see what's going on here. I see what's going on here. Seth Dillon is a failed abortion. Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes way more sense. The clamps didn't crush, but they did squish. What is this? Wow, you should delete this post, Seth. If your daughter got raped and impregnated, then you wouldn't feel the same. My disdain would be for the rapist, not my grandchild. Ew. Seth Dillon, friend of rapists everywhere. I like to see child rapists get the death penalty, but if they must live, make them support their offspring. The only friend of the rapist is the abortionist who lets him off the hook by killing the wrong person. Hey man, sexual assault is this thing called illegal. It's this thing called illegal and a crime. Which also, once again, I literally screamed at a chatter about this the other day. Pro-forced birth people, whether they realize it or not, view pregnancy and children as a punishment. Regardless of the conditions of how that person got pregnant, they view carrying the child and raising them as a punishment to women. They call it the consequences of sex. Straight up. Not like, you know, as some parents would call it, a happy accident, or their child, or in the cases of people who were assaulted, their rapist kid. They see it as punishment for daring, I say, to have, like, you know, a choice in what they do with their body. What you got, Sarah? So they can ban you for doing satirical comedy on Twitter now. Missing 12-year-old girl believed to be staying with much older man. Open and shut case FBI. The man who was under his control is Seth Dillon. Sorry, who has her under control is Seth Dillon. Is this legal? Well, remember that Elon Musk is a big fan of the Babylon Bee. You know, it's right down his sense of humor alley, you know? He's a big fan. So, of course, Seth Dillon would just get free reign on Twitter. Open shut case. X should not allow posts like this to get thousands of likes after being reported. This individual is trying to get Seth Dillon and his family swatted and potentially killed. This account is still up. It's shocking to me that, accounts like Libs of TikTok and Gays Against Groomers and Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Elon Musk himself are still on this platform. But someone, making fun of a rape apologist, Seth Dillon, gets their account clapped. What else is on here? Tensions rise in Middle East as one side wants to kill Jews and the other side are Jews who don't want to die, and neither will compromise. Is this a Babylon Bee article? This has to be a Babylon Bee article. Yep. BabylonBee.com. Sharing this again because it's important to periodically expose and clear out your anti-Semitic followers. What? Not just raped women, but also raped children. Seth Dillon once raped a raped child to give birth, and at the same time wants infinite funds and arms sent to a genocidal Israeli apartheid regime as it wantonly bombs and murders children and babies. Yeah, because I gotta share it again. Before we even get into the Joe Rogan thing. I gotta pull this up, and I feel like I need to share it every time we talk about this. Every time we talk about abortion. The unborn are a convenient group to advocate for. They never make demands of you. They are morally uncomplicated, unlike the incarcerated, addicted, chronically poor. They don't resent you or your condescension or complain that you are not politically correct. Unlike widows, they don't ask you to question patriarchy. Unlike orphans, they don't need money, education, or childcare. Unlike aliens, they don't bring all that racial, cultural, and religious baggage that you dislike. They allow you to feel good about yourself without any work at creating or maintaining relationships. And when they are born, you can forget about them because they cease to be unborn. You can love the unborn and advocate for them without substantially challenging your own wealth, power, privilege, and without reimagining social structures, apologizing, or making reparations to anyone. They are, in short, the perfect people to love if you claim to love Jesus, but actually dislike people who breathe. Prisoners, immigrants, the sick, the poor, widows, orphans, all groups that are specifically mentioned in the Bible, they all get thrown under the bus for the unborn.
Where I'm pretty absolute when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And not just free speech amongst every subject, not just amongst a woman's right to choose or abortion laws.
Yeah.
And this idea that you can't have someone...
Hassan had this exact argument with the chatter over conservatives treating giving birth as a punishment the other day, and in the end the chatter was like, you have good points, but I won't change my mind. Some people are so fucked. Yeah. Which is why the minority group in this argument, people who are pro-forced birth, should not be given any credence. Whether we're talking about like policies on the the private practice level or like state and local policies when it comes to access to abortion, they should not be given any credence. They should be ignored. Their position should be treated as the like self-centered, evil position that it is. Never even considered. If I told you that my solution for unwanted children after they're born is to put them on a stone tablet and hit them with a replica of Mjolnir, except it's real, you would ignore me. You would say I'm a crazy person because it's cruel, it's unusual. Just as forcing someone to carry a fetus to term and then keep that baby because it's the consequence of sex is equally cruel. These are no different.
who is a Christian who talks to another person who's a Christian, and maybe they were on the fence about something, and you convince them to have a child, and it's the best decision they have ever made in their life, and they love their kids so much they couldn't imagine they were.
The entire concept of pregnancy as a punishment is so pervasive, it crosses both sides of the discussion. Like when my wife was pregnant with my son, we had multiple people assume it was a mistake when we planned it. Yeah, it's pervasive because we are a very puritanical country. In many aspects, America has a lot of attitudes towards being open to conversations, particularly cultural ones, that other countries don't, right? Like, when you talk about, like, racism, systemic racism, or trans rights in a country like France, it's not even, like, given a moment of consideration, right? What we would consider a more progressive country than us. In America, because we are loud, we are obnoxious, we are opinionated, and we believe, because of free speech, that if we say something, it has to be taken seriously, whether or not that opinion actually is valid or not. Someone who believes in trans rights is correct. They are correct. Because of, like, the cultural attitudes that have been established over time in America, that person is not going to, just be told, no, fuck you, and, lay down and take it. And it goes the opposite direction, where if someone says some stupid transphobic shit, they're not just going to, be given information to the contrary and go, oh, okay, not how it works in America. Growing up with a family who were sent to the laundries for getting pregnant is still pissing me off so much. They are pro-life unless it's an actual thinking, feeling human. Right. Because once it's born, you don't have to advocate for it anymore.
Were thinking about getting an abortion.
Right.
That's real too.
Yeah.
That's real too. There's also women who have been raped who should not have to fucking carry some rapist baby. There's women who have been sexually assaulted before the age of 14.
There's also, hold on though.
But hold on, don't stop me.
Okay.
That's real too. And we all have to agree. We have to agree on both of those things.
There are also, though, I'm not going to argue with you on that point, but I will say there are people who have been born of rape and are alive right now and are pro-life, and they go around speaking, talking about how I had a right to...
Again, being born does not mean you have some special perspective, right? Being born does not give you, like, a valid claim to say, like, no, my conditions of my existence are as such, so any person who, like, could possibly meet those conditions must, that must be true, right? It's the same thing as like, oh, well, I made it. I fucking had my grind set. I, hustle and grinded my way to the top, and now I'm a business owner, so you can too. No, dog, no. Not everyone is going to arrive at those same conditions, right? Is it really such a hot take to say no to a clump of clump of cells? Is it really such a hot take to say no clump of cells has a goddamn right to life? Yes. Yeah, it is apparently a hot take. It is apparently a scalding hot take to say that, hey, someone who doesn't want the emotional, financial, physical burden of bearing a child and then raising that child into adulthood, and under this current economic structure, having that child around into their 30s is apparently an incredibly hot take, despite the majority of Americans being on the opposite end of that take. That, yeah, you should be able to choose what, you do with your body. Jesus Christ. And I love this notion that he mentioned in, like, that squirrel thread of, like, I think that, like, child rapists should get the death penalty, but for those who simply rape adult women, they should have to, like, pay for the raising of that child. Oh, so what? We're cool with, women who are assaulted carrying that child to term and, like, being forced to, like, keep their rapist baby around their whole life. They don't have to be around the rapist, but they will collect checks from that person. You think a person who is assaulted wants that person's money? No, dude. They want their fucking innocence back. They don't want a fucking check from that person. It's not a cow. It's not a cow that you like, oh, it's your responsibility. I'll send you money for fucking grain so you can feed the cow. No, dog. I feel like that's a very obtuse way of saying I'm completely cool with rape if they pay for it. Yeah, that is the long way around.
Live, and they will go out there and make an argument, a pro-life case, and they're born of a rape.
You don't have a right to tell a 14-year-old girl she has to carry a rapist baby.
I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that's real too. Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't have the right to tell my 14-year-old daughter she has to carry her rapist baby. You understand that?
To look that woman in the eye who was born of a rape.
Do you understand that? That's a 14-year-old child.
I know.
If you a 14-year-old child,
and
raped.
again, Joe Rogan has developed a lot of reactionary sentiment over the years. And this is one of those things that we talk about when we're going over like red states that are resisting anti-abortion legislation. Ohio, very red, you know? Ohio, extremely red. They did the genital inspection bill. Recently voted down an amendment that would have, in the next session, led to a full-on ban. Because conservative women get abortions. Conservative fathers have daughters. They don't want them to go through that. It is such a small minority of people who are like, no, under no conditions. And these same people, if you really talk to them, if you really let them talk, you know, uninterrupted, they'll say even when there's a threat to the life of the mother, no exceptions. Because it's not about, you know, oh, the life of the child. Oh, what about like these women who end up having their rapist babies? They end up loving those children and live a great life. No, it's not about that. That's theater. That's like, you know, window dressing. It's
that
about control.
Spicy with it.
It is about control. It is about immiseration. And additionally, on top of that, it is of course about white supremacy. Because I've said this forever. The people who ban abortion, the people who advocate for that, understand the pre-existing. Before Roe was overturned, the pre-existing conditions that women of color, particularly black women, have when it comes to carrying children, you know, overrepresented in maternal mortality, they understand that getting rid of those privileges that have been afforded to them, to be able to have bodily autonomy, is going to mean that more black women die in childbirth. And hey, would you look at that? Where are the states that are banning abortion the most? Nina Turner, actually. Let me pull Nina up. Ah, here it is. I love this. She says, same folks who are okay with forcing girls to become mothers at 12. Hypocrisy is outstanding. Yeah, raise the voting age to 21. Gen Z is not mature enough at age 18. Someone says, can you show any type of evidence that anyone is in favor of forcing 12-year-old girls to become mothers? The reason I bring up this map, hey, would you look at that? What are the states that are, the most in favor of banning abortion? Let's cross-examine this with the U.S. black population heat map. There we are. Oh, hey, what's that? Whoa, how'd that get there? Yeah, Carolinas and Georgia holding the line barely.
That gremlin is spicy.
There is a reason, and it cannot be decoupled from the white supremacist values that this country was founded on. And when they're like, oh, no, it's going to, what about that child? What about the life of the person who's carrying it? Because I don't care about a potential life. I don't. Morally and policy-wise, I don't care about what could be a person in the future. I care about the person who is existing now. I love the idea of conservatives, pro-forced birth people, being like, oh, well, what about, future children? You don't care about future children. You don't care about, the children of people who were assaulted, much less children in the future, because y'all are the same people who were like, no, climate change is a hoax. We got to, move past the cult of climate change. Nah, dog. Y'all don't give a fuck about that.
You say that they have to carry that baby?
I don't think two wrongs make a right. I don't think murder. I don't think murder is an answer to.
Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett said it herself to preserve the white domestic supply. Also, notice that it's the white domestic supply too, because if that was the actual word she used, then it does belie what they view the poor as. Because who's overrepresented? What population is overrepresented in having more than 2.3, whatever the nuclear family number is, children? It's poor people, people who don't have access to contraception, people who don't have access to good sexual education. People who don't have access to, you know, like birth control or abortion. Human resource capital.
Murder fixes a rape.
What if we're talking about an abortion when the fetus, like literally it's like 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 days? What if she just turned positive just now? Positive for pregnancy.
I just disagree that.
What if it just happened today?
You can like draw a line on when.
You can't.
Like, once life
so you
has
can't
begun,
do
I don't
at
think you
the
draw
very
lines.
moment. Like if someone came inside of someone and they cracked the egg, and then bam, they took Plan B. You shouldn't do that.
Well, I mean, that's if it's preventing the pregnancy from occurring. That's different.
It's an abortion. That's what Plan B is. It makes your body abort the conceived pregnancy.
He's right.
That's what it does.
He's right.
Is it?
I mean, I'm pretty
It's
sure.
a medical abortion. That's what it is. It is a medically induced abortion.
Let's
Seth Dillon is a white supremacist. Dig down his beliefs far enough, and you'll find that he doesn't view brown and black lives as equal to white lives. Yeah, dude, it's the Babylon Bee. It is Apartheid Clyde, Elon Musk's favorite website, next to Reddit.
I know that women used to do something similar. They would take like a shit ton of birth control pills.
If it prevents the conception, it's different.
Yeah, exactly, Mitch. This is the Joe I miss. Just the regular dude, bare minimum empathetic takes. I miss this Joe.
Then if it's terminating.
No, it's terminating.
Well, yeah.
I'm 90% sure it's terminating. I think it's after conception. That's what the whole idea about. That's why it's Plan B. Plan A is don't get pregnant. Plan B.
All I'm saying is it's real. It's real. What you're saying is real, and those are tough situations. It's also real that sometimes these babies are born and they do, and they grow up to be real people with feelings. They're alive. They're humans, and they're pro-life. Most of them.
Can we click on that so I get the full sentence, because it seems like it keeps going. All right, here it is. The morning after pill is a type of emergency birth control contraception. Emergency contraception is used to prevent pregnancy for women who've had unprotected sex or whose birth control method has failed.
Right, prevent
morning after
pregnancy,
pill, no, is intended for backup contraception only, not as a primary method of birth control. Morning after pills contain either levonorgestrel, or ulipristal acetate, levonorgestrel. You want to try it? Try that. Try that word.
Come on, Joe. Don't try and sound it out.
Levonorgestrel is available over the counter without a prescription. But go to the part where we were reading in the synopsis that here it is, right there. Keep in mind, the morning after pill isn't the same as blah, 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 also known as RU486 or the abortion pill.
Wait. Morning after pills do not end a pregnancy that has implanted. They work primarily by delaying or preventing.
Yeah, dude, that's why it's the morning after. That's why it's the morning after. This is one of the reasons why we need like comprehensive sex education. Yes, the egg has not set. Holy fuck.
Ovulation.
Yeah, I was talking about the different thing then. I was talking about RU486. This drug terminates an established pregnancy, one which the fertilized egg has attached to the uterine wall and has begun to develop. Okay.
Right.
So
okay,
forget about Plan B. What about RU486? It's the same question. The same question is if someone knows they're pregnant, or if they test positive for pregnancy and they take a pill that can get rid of that like the day of, you're against that.
I would lay it out like this. I would say it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human life.
It's not a human life. It is not a human life. It does not have a conscious experience. Humans have conscious experiences. Now, where along the fetal development that begins, because there is, and you'll hear a lot of conservative and pro-forced birth people say like, oh, well, if you go into the uterus and you like jab the baby with like something pointy, it reacts to it. It's like, okay, is that a genuine conscious experience, a reaction to pain, or is that an electrical reaction to stimuli? Plants do that. Plants are living things, but they don't have conscious experiences. That's why we have no problem mowing the lawn. If someone knows they are pregnant and they don't want to be, they will end that pregnancy any way they can, even at the risk of their own lives. Having abortion be legal is safe and the only way to prevent pregnant people from killing themselves and end pregnancies they do not consent to.
Intentionally kills an innocent human life. Therefore, abortion is wrong. And I don't think any of the examples of like, oh, well, how developed is it? Can it think? Is it conscious? Can it dream? Can it feel pain?
So for you, it's the moment of conception.
I think that if it's a human life, An industry.
Seth didn't even know that Plan B was like an abortion pill. What does he know about like the moment of conception?
A distinct human life, then I think it's wrong to end its life. And
so you think that
even,
do you think that like once the conception happens, there's some sort of a miraculous event, like at the very moment, like you could literally get to the point where the sperm cracks the egg. If you could scoop that egg out right there, would that be abortion?
Well, I mean, at some point you're going to have to say there was a magic moment that happened, because you believe that we eventually become valuable humans, right?
Well, listen,
where's the moment where you think the magic happens?
Let me tell you,
well, that's the thing. It's that conscious experience, and where that conscious experience begins is, you know, it's in the final trimester. It's in like the, you know, the last like weeks or so of pregnancy. And people who get abortions in that period did not do it because they said, fuck it. But once again, we arrive at the only restrictions that you're putting on abortion are arbitrary, simply to cause more harm. The solution is you don't do it. You don't put restrictions on it. Free, readily available, without apology.
My perspective on this, because I've said this multiple times, but it bears repeating. I think abortion is a very human issue, in that we're messy, and it's a very messy issue. It's complicated. Bill Burr has a very
Okay, well, there we go. We bring up Bill Burr. Hey, if we're going to bring up anybody, if Joe's going to talk about any of his comedian friends, I'm glad it's Bill Burr and not one of his, like, you know, jackass friends. I miss this old Joe. I miss this Joe Rogan. Like, if that version of Joe, like, comes back and he starts, like, you know, oh, I was wrong about, like vaccines and shit, I'm down for it. He's still there. I mean, he's still there for, like, weed, you know, his kids, the Barbie movie, you know? He had a normal reaction to it because he has daughters, right? The reason Joe has such a has such a barrier in his brain when it comes to COVID and vaccines is because Joe is disconnected from what that reality is, right? He can imagine, you know, what it, like, the pain of, like, you know, his daughter, like, having to decide whether or not to, you know, keep like her assaulter's baby. He can imagine that, right? He can't imagine poor people not having access to, like, all of the medicines that he has whenever he got COVID, being able to, you know, take a couple days off, take a week off, not go into work. He's able to do that, but he's been so far disconnected from, like, what the working class experiences, particularly when it comes to healthcare, cost of housing, just working in this country, that he fell prey to the most surface level zero head takes. That's really what happened. He still moved them to a state where they can't get an abortion. I know. Yeah. And he's still, like, you know, that's that block. But the reality is, he can go to another state. What do you think, Greg Abbott's going to go after Joe Rogan, after Texas Joe, because he got his daughters an abortion? No. That ain't going to happen. Two worlds, man. It's one for the rich and one for the poor. And Joe Rogan is settled comfortably in the rich one. Old Joe might rear its head every now and then, but it's only for, like, the most immediate things, like whether or not his daughters are happy. And I think that's how you get people back to that position, particularly on abortion, because it's already like a minority of minority who is, like, completely anti-abortion. You can get somebody who is like, oh, okay, well, yeah, obviously, like, life of the mother, you know, rape and incest, blah, blah, blah. You know, that makes sense. If they can agree to that, you can get them back to the right position, which is it should be readily available for no reason. Yeah, it's a big club and you ain't in it. Anyway,